Hi.
Hi.
This is what I'm calling in tribute to my university days, Magic 101. Let me start by asking how many of you think you might be wasting your time? Nobody wants to own up to that? Put it down, leave it alone. If you're not wondering that, is this a waste of time? Then either you're really good at blindly believing, perhaps our A1Fs, or you're just not paying attention. Magic has been used to mean a lot of different things. One of those is deception, dishonesty. You watch somebody make an elephant disappear on stage. The elephant's not gone. They're just hiding it. It's, smoke and mirrors. Or saw someone in half, or walk on water. These are all things you've seen done, and it's called magic. And so magic is from the start associated with deception and dishonesty and manipulation. Magic is also used in a sloppy way by any number of people. The magic of a plant growing from a seed and becoming something so much more than it was. Well, it's an interesting chemical process. And if you're generous enough, I suppose you could call it magic, but I think if most of you are honest, you'd admit that watching a seed grow is pretty boring. So, let me start this whole process by talking to you a little about what is magic. In its simplest form, magic is focusing your will to cause an effect. It's the simplest form. But by that general definition, ringing a doorbell is magic. You focus your will on a little button, you push, and ding dong. What I'm talking about specifically is focusing your will in a way that can't be explained without reference to some abstract, mythological craziness. Magic is focusing your will to do something that utterly baffles people. When I used to teach computers many, many years ago, I used to start by telling them that computers were magic. That most people had no idea how they worked or why they worked. They just knew they pushed some buttons or said some things and suddenly impossible things happened. And they didn't know why or how. It was a mystery to them. And we, the people on the inside who understood, we were like ancient magicians of old, both mysterious and powerful and amazing, and at the same time a little sinister, scary, because we could do things they couldn't do. Now, in case that seems a little silly to you, it's relevant for this reason. What I'm now teaching you is magic will, in 200, 220 years, be science. In the same way that electricity might have seemed astounding to someone, and now we have people making computer chips. At some point, what I'm going to show you of magic will just be part of the physics and the mechanics and the science and the construction of our world. It's not going to be strange. But right now it is strange. Right now it's weird and it's cool. So let me ask you a question. If the cat comes in and it's got a headache, and I put my fingers on its head and get rid of that headache, is that magic? Why? You say yes, but why? Because I am focusing my will to create a perceivable effect, an effect in the world, and it is of the sort that can only be explained by mysticism and mystery and mythology and all those scary M words. It can't be explained by medicine and the more boring M words. It's true. It's something that we can't really explain. I'll loosely speak of magic as falling into two schools. And really, it's more complex than that. But loosely, I'll put it into two because they're ones you're familiar with. And that first one is one of those schools, and the second one, how many of you have watched Roja read somebody's mind? How many have had it happen to you? Yes? At the first time you might say, oh, you're making that up. But after a while you start to say, how does she know that? How does she know what I'm thinking? I didn't say that out loud. How can she do that? It's spooky. Right? It's a spooky action. It's a weird thing. It is shaping her will to create a result in the world in a way that can't be explained except by the mystery type words. And that's the second kind of magic. Loosely speaking, there's the magics that reach out and do things and change things. And there's the magic that notice things. You know these as sensor and shaper. And you say, wait, that's just sensing and shaping. We're doing that already. Well, what you're doing in sensing and shaping is magic. Sure, I can look at somebody coming in the door with their hand on their belly and say, that person has a pain in their abdomen. It's not exactly magic. There's a fictional television show that's gone on for years now called The Mentalist. And that's all he does, is look at people and read their micro cues. There's another one about a man who reads microfacial expressions and tells when people are lying. And see, that's not magic. It can be explained simply. A minor contraction of the eyes, a looking down and to the left, a tensing of the shoulders, a slight holding of the breath, an increase in the pulse. These are things that can be explained in simple and obvious ways. They can be cataloged and processed. These aren't magic. But when I can look at the guy who's got the stomach ache and say, you've been fighting with your girlfriend, and it's bringing up memories of when your mom and dad used to fight, and you used to get stomach aches as a kid, and that's why you're getting that. And they'll look at me and say, wait a minute, you can't possibly know that, and I can't possibly know that. But I've been doing this for longer than some of you folks have been alive. Sitting people down and saying, here, these are the things I sense. And they say, you can't know that, that's spooky, that's impossible. And it's not small things. I've told people their entire life story or parts of them, and they've been absolutely shocked. There's no way you could know that. I used to, when I lived in California or Hawaii, people who knew what I did, they'd bring their friends because I was a cool party trick. Hey, this is the guy that can do that thing. And they'd bring their friend up, do your thing. And I would proceed to tell their friend all kind of things that they had no way to understand how I could know it. And they aren't things that I could tell by reading microfacial expressions. It's a mystery, it's a mysticism, it's mythology, it's unclear how I did it. This is the perceptual side of magic. And you might say, that's not magic. But isn't reading minds magical? What I'm doing is focusing my will to get a result, a perceivable result, in a way that is mysterious, can only be explained by mystery and mysticism and mythology and such. And in this lifetime, I've focused most of it a lot more on the sensing side than on the shaping side. But as of the last couple of years, I'd say I've had my share of both. If any of you is wearing a grounding belt, or a belt stone, a belt level stone, or one of the worm beads, or has one of the many animals, or you're sitting next to one holding its hand right now, this is something that's consistent and measurable and astounding and absolutely impossible by any scientific standards, any of the boring M's. Impossible. This is the doing magic. So we've got the sensing magic and the doing magic. And you might say, if you're, one of those detail-oriented sorts, well, what about sources? What about stars? And I'm going to tell you, it doesn't make a difference what clan you are. Because a really good shaper can do sensing side magic. Not as well as a good sensor. And a really good sensor can do shaping side magic, though not as well as a good shaper. And I will tell you, some of you have begun to perceive it. But clan isn't just a choice you make. You too, who've switched sensor to shaper and shaper to sensor. It's more than just your attitude on life, yes? You find yourself responding emotionally and chaotically. How can I be doing this? Oh, all shapers do that. Right? Why am I this? Well, all sensors do that. That it's more than just a classification. It's something with first and second and third order, consistent, typical or type-like responses across the class. It's very consistent. And sources can do some of both, sensing side magic and shaping side magic, the perceiving and the making things happen. Right? The sensors, eventually I'll talk more about that, but do it more with an awareness of the dance. Shapers are more direct, sensors are more subtle. So for now, forget whether you're a sensor or whether you're a shaper. Right now, let's just talk about magic in general and what it is. All right. And most of you have seen Harry Potter or read the books, or I Dream of Jeannie, or Bewitched, or the little blonde girl who might be called Samantha. There are many examples of magic in your world. And because there are so many examples, it's unclear often the scope of magic. What I want to do is put some parentheses around it. I already gave you the bottom end. If I look at you and you do a minor twitch of your eyes, or you look down and to the left, or your shoulders tense, or your heart raises, I can say, your heart rate raises, I can say, you're probably lying. Right? That's simply perceiving micro cues. That's what I would call below the bottom end of magic. That's the practical, predictable, logical stuff. Right? So magic starts from there, where there isn't the practical, predictable, logical stuff. But it can be very simple things. You're lying. I can tell. Or, you were thinking of donuts. I just heard your thoughts. Right? This is the bottom end of magic, and it's maybe not so impressive. It's perhaps astoundingly useful to be able to tell when someone's lying to you, or have an idea what someone's thinking or what they want from you. I made a lot of money in my time with just that skill, just knowing what it was that people wanted and how they wanted to hear it. That's the bottom end, right? What's the top end? What's the other bracket here? Let me suggest to you a scene from a Harry Potter movie. I believe it was the very first time the little kids were on their train going away to school. And I'm not positive which episode, I'm not a big fan. But the little redhead girl takes her magic wand and she taps the boy on the head and she says, "Oculus reparum," or some bad Latin. And suddenly he doesn't need glasses anymore. Right? That would be pretty cool if he never had to wear glasses again. Right? The difficulty is, if any 8 or 10-year-old could say a couple Latin words and change your body so significantly, so you no longer needed glasses or you were cured of cancer, then they could do the reverse. Change it so you needed glasses, or make you go blind, make you come down with cancer. And if every 8-year-old with no experience could do this, imagine what somebody in their 30s or 40s who've been doing it for a lifetime would do. The obvious progression here quickly grows a bit insane. You know, you got a bunch of teenagers getting drunk and summoning dragons that are burning the town down. Right? You've got someone in their middle ages who decides to knock the moon out of its orbit. What happens is, when you go too far past these brackets, you create a system that isn't sustainable. Now, if we were to create in this world magic that was that powerful, it'd be really cool. Wow, I could knock the moon out of its orbit? Wow, it's amazing, right? But as soon as you did, the earth would get shaken from its foundations and the tides would flow over the lands and most every living creature would die, and, life as we know it would end. And I don't want to be unkind, but people aren't very smart. People do all kinds of stupid things. If you don't believe me, go talk to a teacher or a counselor or a police officer who works with folks. They'll tell you some of the insane stuff people do because they're angry or upset or sad or tired. If it were possible to knock the moon out of its orbit, someone would do it. At some point, somebody would say, if that person won't go out with me, then nobody should exist, and so I'm going to do it. And they would. People aren't smart enough to make the right decisions, aren't smart enough to make good decisions. And so if the extremes of magic, of the doing magics, were possible, what would happen is this entire world would eliminate itself very quickly. It would just die out. Somebody would create a virus that wipes everybody out. Somebody would summon a creature that would consume everything, change the basic equations that keep life alive, and things would end. Well, I know most of you think 2 years is, a pretty long time. But believe it or not, this world's been going on longer than that. It's been going on a really long time. And there are people, and there are groups, and there are others who watch over this world to make sure that it keeps going. And they are not going to let a system happen that will allow anybody who wants to wipe out the world at their whim. They won't. And so, no matter how powerful magic gets, there's always going to be an upper limit here. An upper limit enforced by a bunch of things, but its primary purpose is this: the system has to be stable. The system has to work. The Harry Potter world, if people could actually do the kind of magic they did, wouldn't be stable. That pretty soon they'd end up wiping out life as we know it. So this is why magic has to have an upper end in potential. Right? I want you to know this because you might say, well, I want to teleport to the moon and pick up a moon rock. It's possible. It won't be common knowledge in any of your lifetimes, but it's possible. Right? So the big, huge, amazing magics, we'd like them to happen. And the skeptics and the cynics might say, well, if you can't do that stuff, then obviously you're just faking. But no, that upper limit has to be there. There's no choice. Because you folks, even if you're well-meaning and well-intentioned, make mistakes. And there are some among you who are not well-meaning and well-intentioned, and they may do more than make mistakes. Imagine someone with a mentality of a serial killer or a CEO of one of the more corrupt corporations with the power to reshape the fundamental laws of this world. And it becomes something horrifying very quickly. Right? So I want to warn you. I want to excite you at the possibility that it's more than this. I want you to be aware that it's not more than that. And these aren't hard limits, these two limits I'm sort of abstractly describing to you. This upper limit is defined by a lot of things. One of them is your personal strength. To the sensors among you, or the sensors watching this, you can probably tell that I'm a little bit tired right now. I have been changing things. At the risk of pushing disbelief for the young ones among you, I have been rewriting some of the fundamental laws of how humanity works. And it takes more than you can imagine. It takes my resources every time. And I come out of a big shaping with pain in my guts, and my guts turning to liquid, and the inside of my lungs like they're on fire, and I can hardly breathe, and my whole body will shake sometimes for hours, and I'll be too exhausted to stand and too nauseous to eat. And the really big shapings are shaped through your system, and so they shape your system in return. Right? So this will be a fundamental limiting factor on the magics that you do. That it costs. It costs your system. The sensing magics as well. Any good sensor will tell you, if they sit and really focus to find an answer or to look inside someone, and if they do it for a while, they end up really, really tired. Their blood sugar gets low, they get dizzy, they get fuzzy. If you spend a day doing readings or working with sensing for a group of people, it can be very, very tiring. So both the sensing, the shaping magics, they shape you. And this provides a very effective limit. If your guts are a mess and there's anger and frustration and bitterness, and that energy has to move through all that muck, you can't move as much energy, and so it's a whole lot more work. And so the system filters a bit. Those who are angry, who are frustrated, who are petty, who are impatient, they can't move as much energy. They end up spending a lot more. They get exhausted a lot quicker. The right-hand side here is pushed way over. This is a very useful piece of the system. Those who aren't in harmony have much more trouble getting the results. So, in a possibly less than ideal way, I've told you basically what I mean by magic. And I've defined two kinds of magic, and I've given you a scope of what you can expect out of magic. You probably won't be levitating cars, not in the near future, but I do expect you to be able to move pencils by thinking about it, or to read someone's mind. The simple magics are possible now that the energy is coming back to this world. And so let's talk about how that's done, because that's really what all this is about. This is where it's going. Now, you've watched Harry Potter or read the books. These kids are taken from ordinary homes and have no experience with magic, and something happens to them and suddenly they can do magic. Anybody know what that something is? Well, yeah, they grow up, but even so, when they come of age, they don't magically start doing all these incredible things. They have to go somewhere and do something first.
Get their magic wand.
They have to get their magic wand, and without it, they're worthless. Something happens to their wand, they're screwed. Right? I want to tell you that you have a magic wand. Metaphorically speaking, you have a magic wand. And those of you who've been doing the elf path process are already familiar with it. And those who haven't been doing the elf path process, you've got some fun stuff ahead. It works like this. Magic is about taking the energy that's within you or around you and using it, focusing it. Right? It is the magic wand which focuses it. In this world, that magic wand which focuses it sits in the middle of your guts. You can have all kinds of energy swirling around you and it doesn't do you much good. You can really, really want something to happen, even a simple thing like trying to ground somebody, and it won't happen if you're not what I call in your guts. Right? So the magic wand, the piece that you need to make all this work, is what your teachers call the throne. The seat that sits in the center of you, in the center of your first mind. When you are sitting in that seat, then you can reach out and affect the things around you. When you're not, if your heart is in your throat or your energy's out here, one of these things that says you're not really present, you're going to find that you can't work. Most of you guys here, at least, have done sensing and shaping. You've seen what I mean? If you're not in your guts and centered, nothing happens? Yes? No? Maybe?
Yes.
Ah, okay. So the first step in really making magic happen is to recognize that your magic wand is the throne in your guts. And so you're not going to get some 3-meter tall hairy guy to take you into an invisible street in London and buy you a little piece of wood. Not quite that easy. You actually have to work to create this wand in yourself. Oh, it's a bit like the old Druid idea of the Druid teacher taking the young apprentice out into the woods and causing them to find the right tree and take the right branch and carve it the right way so that it will work. And if they can't do this, then they don't have the magic staff that they need to do these things, to do the magic, the work that they're doing. Right? So it's a bit more like that than going into a magic street and picking it out of a box. And the really cool magics, the really powerful and amazing things, I told you that there are some limiting factors. One of them is your physiology. You try and run too much energy, it will just burn you out, right? We've talked about that. Another one is this, the magic wand. That it's not enough to find this throne and sit on it. If you've got out of control pieces inside that are wrestling for inner dominance, they're going to be knocking you off, and you can't do anything effective with that kind of chaos. So you actually have to go in and tame the inner beasts, the inner monsters. You have to. And you have to take the out of control emotions, because it's like a storm when the emotions are out of control and you're scared and you're angry. And you can't be here and be powerful when that's true. And if you are here and you start bringing in more and more energy, it's going to hit all those emotions that aren't cleared out. Right? It's like electricity running through a circuit. If there's a small problem in the circuit, it's no big deal. But you start running more electricity through and it gets hotter and hotter, and they'll end up burning the house down. So the garbage in here that isn't a big deal, when you start trying to do something impressive and running a lot through, it's going to create an inner storm, an inner chaos, and stop you from getting any effective results. So this is a second limiting factor to what you can do. Those who don't have the will, and I know people don't like to hear this word, but the discipline, and I don't mean beating your kids with a belt. By discipline, I mean the practice of doing the exercises every day, consistently working and growing. Right? If you don't have the will and the discipline, you'll only ever get so much done here in your guts. And you'll never do the really amazing things. Oh, you might at some point if it's an emergency situation or something chaotic, or you're really drunk or taking drugs or some, random out of control, the planets are lining up on that particular day, you may get an amazing effect once. Maybe even twice or three times, but you won't be able to get the consistent and reliable results if you haven't got your magic wand, your magic chair cleaned up, sorted out. Right? So I was going to say the first step. The first step in magic is really accepting that it happens. And if you hang around here, then you've seen the tools and the toys, you've watched people read each other's minds or pass ideas back and forth or tickle each other's brain from across the room. You're used to these things. And so the first step really is accepting that it's possible. The next step beyond that is the cleaning up of the guts, and that's white belt and yellow belt and orange belt. And I realize that to some of you, well, those of you who are past it, you may not have to worry about it, but to the young ones, it may seem like a long time to get all the way up to orange belt. But it's necessary if you want to be good. If you want to once in a while get a sloppy read on the sensing side of magic, you can do that without cleaning up much. If you want to once in a while be able to create a very vague, fuzzy thing that nobody can really tell what it is that lasts for just a few seconds, you don't have to clean up your guts. But if you want consistent, reliable results, if you ever want to be able to make a tool like my grounding belts, if you want to be able to consistently read someone's mind, you want to be able to move a pencil from across the room, the very first step is the wand. It's the guts. So, some of you are already saying, well, I'm not doing that then. And that's good. Because the people with that kind of attitude are the ones who'd end up screwing things up. I told you that there are limits put in place on purpose on this end to keep folks from tearing your world apart. This is one of those limits. You have to get in there and clean out the guts and develop the will and the focus. This is one of the limits that's put in there on purpose. It's not me. It's larger than just this world. This limit is put in there on purpose to keep people from tearing up the system. So, if you're willing to move forward, that's the first step you need to know. You need to clean up what's in here, and you need to be the one sitting on the throne. Right? And it's not enough to go up when the inner ogre's taking a nap and sneak up and sit on the throne for a bit hoping he won't notice. You really need to take over your guts. All of the stuff in here, the calm nodes and the joy center and the passion center and the PFNs, and you've really got to take it all over and make the whole thing your own. And you've got to make it strong. Now, another limit, and one that's going to turn some of you off, but that's okay. Because it's true, and so you can just deal. Another limit is how much energy you can process before you pass out. Before it's just too much and you can't do anymore. All right, you may not literally pass out. Sometimes you keep doing and doing, and then suddenly there's nothing there anymore. You can't feel, you can't, right, it's just gone. You've used all of your available focus pool. And that's physical exercise. If you're in good shape, if you can get out and run a kilometer, or for our Yank friends, a mile, without your heart trying to explode and your lungs on fire, this is good. Because to consistently move enough energy takes a lot out of the physical form. And so if the physical form is in shape, you'll be far more effective. Don't have to, but you'll get far better results in the long run if you're in decent shape. Okay? So automatically I'm weeding out most everybody. Right? You got to clear the garbage out of the guts. You got to face the inner monsters. You got to actually be you with integrity and focus. And it helps to exercise. And most everybody's going, all right, I'm done. I quit. Magic 101, I'm going to drop that and go take pottery. But again, without this right bracket, without this right bracket, if magic were unconstrained, it could go off the charts. Life as you know it would eventually be badly disrupted or end. And so it has to be there, this right bracket. And these limits, I'm telling you, are part of that. So let's imagine that you're all doing some daily, or at least 3 or 4 times a week exercise. Your cardiovascular's in good shape. That you're eating not too unreasonably, and that you've been doing the inner work. That you can sit on the throne in your guts and nothing knocks you off. You can take strong emotions and chaos without freaking and screaming out and becoming a 5-year-old. And you can do this consistently. Right, let's imagine that you've reached this place. What then? I had intended to talk to you a bit about what I call the seed, the flower, and the fruit, and the way the energy develops and moves in the body, so we could understand how this develops. But that's going to have to wait for a different time. Because this is an introductory process here, let's keep it a little more simple and say that, in my opinion, and given the tools and such you have, my opinion is the most qualified one around at the moment. In my opinion, magic takes 2 things. It takes power, and it takes focusing that power. Right? If you take a flashlight, shine it on a piece of paper, is it going to burn a hole in that paper? No, probably not. It'd be some pretty strange paper. But if you take that same, not too much brighter than a flashlight, and you can focus it down to a tiny enough beam, it'll burn a hole right through a piece of paper. Most of you have seen personally or videos of lasers. Not talking, lightsaber type things. I'm talking actual present day lasers. It's just light. It's just light that's coherent and focused. Right? And if you were to take all of that big, fancy, expensive laser equipment and take out the light part and put a candle in there, it's not going to be very impressive. Not just because it's not coherent light, but because it doesn't have enough oomph. These, to me, are the 2 key ingredients of magic. There are some more pieces as far as shaping or tuning it, but these are the 2 ingredients you have. You have to have enough oomph, and you have to have enough focus. And I've told you that sensors can shape and shapers can sense, right? Here's the difference. Shapers have more oomph, and sensors have more focus. Sensors don't have as much oomph, but they can be far more precise. I don't mean sensor clan and shaper clan. I mean those who prefer the sensing magics and those who prefer the shaping magics. It could be a very left-handed source, or could be someone working with the star energies. Right? So I'm not talking about the clans, I'm talking about the 2 kinds of magic I told you. Right? Someone who works with the sensing magics has a far greater ability to focus. And so they can take a small amount of energy and put it right where they need it to be. A shaper may be taking, someone who works with the shaper energies, may be swinging a baseball bat. Right? But imagine trying to ring a doorbell with a baseball bat. Keep banging on this side of the house. They'll probably come out and see who's there, but the doorbell's not going to ring. Right? It's still effective, but the doorbell's not actually going to happen. You have to take the right amount of force in just the right spot, and you get a doorbell. Right? Shapers, the shaping side, the doing side of magic has far more oomph. The sensing side of magic has far more focus. And both of them matter. And obviously, as I was just trying to suggest, they compensate for one another. If you don't have a lot of oomph, you can make up for it with a lot more focus. And if you don't have a lot of focus, you can make up for it with a lot more oomph. And if you want to be really good, you need the oomph and the focus, the push, and the ability to focus that push. I want to keep this under an hour, so let me suggest some ideas to you for next time we do this, because I've told you over and over again, with everything I have taught you, that this is maybe 5% theory and 95% practice. So what I want to do is give you some practices. You don't have to do them, but I encourage you, if you do want to see results, to check it out. So one of the things I want you to look at is what you'd like to be able to do. When you say, I want to heal people, well, that's pretty lame. Right, second grader, give me that answer. Heal people, does that include raising folks from the dead? I mean, is that fixing broken arms? Is that bringing people out of comas? How extreme do you want to be? What I would like each of you to do is to make a list, as long or as short as you like, of the things that you feel fall within what I call magic. The stuff that's above this minimum that can be explained by the boring M's, and below this maximum that might actually end up destroying the world. What kind of things would you like to be able to do? And I want you to make this list fairly detailed. Right? It doesn't have to be long, but actually put some thought into it, what you'd like to be able to do. And then I want you to imagine if everybody in the world could do that thing, what kind of effect it would have. Because if you do this and you see, wow, if everybody could do that, the world would fall apart, you're not going to be able to. The inherent limits in the system are likely to stop you. Right? So I want you to make this list, and I want you to imagine if lots of people could do it. And I want you to remember that I talk a lot about being a nice guy and, walking on the light side of things. There are others who are less considerate. If you can use a doing magic to cure cancer, can you use a doing magic to cause cancer? Well, at some point we'll talk more about some of the limits on the system, but the short answer is yes. If you can push in one direction, you can push in the other. The physics of the metaphysics. So, if you could, with a single word, bring people back from the dead, could somebody with a single word walk around killing people? If so, that would be a pretty serious problem. Right? So I want you to look at the kind of things you want to do. And I want you to imagine everybody could do them, and some of those people doing them will be doing them from the shadow. And just imagine what the world is like. And next time I want to talk about some of those things. Things you'd like to do, things you thought would be really cool, but when you look at it, you think maybe that isn't allowed, because some of these things are. Some of them seem impossible, but they're possible. Right? So I want you guys, if you're serious about this, to make this list of the things you'd like to be able to do. And it doesn't have to have a limit. If you want to teleport to Mars and make giant clocks out of the sand, like the fellow in the recent movie, was it the Avengers? The really, really bad superhero movie. Glowing blue guy with a dot on his forehead who went to Mars and created a giant clock out of sand. Yes, if you want to be able to do that, write it down. Who knows? It may be possible. I don't want to set artificial limits for you. As the energy continues to come back into this world, we should see more and more and more being possible. Right? So don't limit yourself. If there's something that seems really cool, write it down, think about it, imagine it, see how it might play out if everybody could do it. And see how it might cause harm if it were done inappropriately. So do this for next time. Actually try this. And as far as a doing exercise, what I want you to do is play with this oomph, the power and the focus. Now, if you're a sensor, you're on the more sensing side of the magic. You might want to do this alone or with someone else. But what you might try is draw up different amounts of power or different kinds of power or different flavors. This feels more like water to me. That feels more like fire. Bring them up and try and focus them in different ways. Maybe you want to know what somebody's thinking. Maybe you want to know what somebody's feeling. Maybe you have a question about another lifetime. Try bringing up different amounts of energy and different tones or timbres of energy, and try focusing them in different ways, a broader focus and narrower focus and so on. And if you're on the more doing side, I want you to do the same thing, but with an effort towards creating something. Now, one of the limits in the system, the limits over here, falls under belief. People are pre-coded not to believe. Your subconscious handicaps you. And this keeps you from causing trouble. The things you really can't believe, you end up not being able to do because your subconscious stops you. I've used the example with some of you of how the conscious and the subconscious might fight. Imagine a man who's trying to lose weight. And he looks in the mirror and says, "I'm thin," because he was told this is how it's done. And he says this every day, and his subconscious learns and he starts getting thinner. Only it doesn't work. What happens is he's looking in the mirror and saying, "I'm thin," and something in his subconscious is like, You barely fit in that mirror. What are you talking about? Right? And this piece, the subconscious piece, this is where your magic wand is, in the guts, right? This piece is where your power is. So if his head or his will is saying, "I'm thin," and the magic wand piece is saying, "No, you're really fat," he's going to end up gaining weight, our fictitious man. Because the subconscious, the throne here, is the seat of power. It's what makes stuff happen. So understand this before you start. If you try to levitate up off the floor, the odds are good that something in your guts will be saying, "You're an idiot, that's not possible." And the more you try, the more you fail. And the stronger that piece in your subconscious will get, saying, "See, you're an idiot, knock it off." And so I encourage you not to try things that you feel are impossible. Well, no, it's not true. Try them. Try them once, try them twice. Okay, I didn't float. Right? But don't get obsessive. I can do this, I can do this. You become like the guy looking in the mirror. "I'm thin, I'm thin." "No, you're not. No, you're not." Right? Don't obsess about the ones you think are impossible. The exercises that we use for young people here who are playing with shaping are put a particular energy into this thing and let other people look and see if it's there. Make the idea of a tree and have other people, look at it and see it. In working with energy, this is something that nobody's going to come by and grade you. Your mommy's not going to yell at you. Your second grade school teacher's not going to hit you with a ruler. These kind of exercises are ones that you can do on the doing side of magic that won't provoke as strong a rebellion from the gods. So I encourage you to be as daring as you care to be. But if you find something going, don't push it. Don't let the rebellious piece get stronger. Keep your focus on things that are more believable for you. And you don't have to limit yourself to one or the other. If you want to do a sensing side magic and a doing side magic, do it. Try them both. You may find you're better at one than the other, but I encourage you to play with them. And I know this is really, really obvious, but every single time people screw this up, so I'll say it again. Once upon a time, you were a roly-poly little chubby-cheeked thing, not much bigger than this. Right? Wearing a diaper and screaming because you didn't have any words yet. Right? And somebody, maybe they stuck their fingers out so you could grab them, and they helped you to stand up. And the moment they let go, you fell back on your butt. And you did this day after day after day. Barely able to stand, not at all without help. And at some point, with a lot of help and guidance and coaching, you were able to take a step. And everybody said, "Oh, yay, they took a step. Isn't it so precious?" And that kind of ridiculous things that people say about babies. This is after months of practice. You're able to actually stand up and take a single step on your own, and then you promptly fall on your butt and squawk. Right? That's it. You get a step out of it. And you've forgotten this. And those of you who have forgotten this, spend some time with babies and watch it happen. The babies don't say, "Oh, I tried to walk last week and it didn't work. Pff, I'm just going to crawl from here on out." They don't. They just try it again, and they try it again, and they try it again. Any new thing, dancing, playing the clarinet, driving a dune buggy, any new thing has challenges. And the first time you do it, you're not going to do it well. First time you might screw it up completely. I want to encourage you that until we talk again, if you're serious about this, spend a little time every day. 2 or 3 minutes, don't be long. Spend a little time every day playing with what you've decided to try. You want to make energy that looks like a tree, or you want to make a blob that's blue, or you want to be able to tell what someone's thinking, or what someone's feeling, or what the cause of a thing is. Practice it over and over and over. Because like that baby, you're going to fall on your butt the first time and squawk. You may not be able to stand on your feet at all. It is only through repeated application that you develop competence. So, I want to encourage you to do it, and to do it, and to do it, over and over and over. And again, if you find it's something that causes a difficult response, something's, "That's not possible, you're an idiot, stop that." Stop that. You don't want to feed a piece that's really, really destructive to you. Find a simpler exercise that doesn't provoke the chaos, and work with that. And I tell you what, you can communicate with one another. You can say, I did this and it was really cool. I recall Roja at one point making the flame of a candle move back and forth. Back when she was more on the shaping side of things, it's a very low-level shaper exercise, or shaping. It's the doing side of magic, right? It doesn't have to be complex. If there's one that works for you, you do it. Share it. And if for the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks or however long until I have the energy to set up the next steps here, tell you a bit about the seed and the flower and the fruits. If you do this every day, maybe a few times a day, whatever your exercise is, and if you do the other piece I told you, make up a list of what you'd like to do, and make it very detailed, and then imagine everybody could do that and how the world would be different. If you do these two things, then we'll be in a much better place to make this work next time. Alright? So for now, I realize this is very general, but think of it as a university organic chemistry course. And this is your first day. Right? We're passing out the textbooks and showing you where the chalkboard is and talking about the basic terms we're going to use. Right? This is just the beginning. I will attempt to get you far more, assuming that I'm able, till you guys can get some consistent results. Maybe not quite as dramatic as some of what I've done, but some consistent results. Until next time.